Welcome to Adventures in Relationship. I'm Amy Gordon, a psychotherapist specializing in relational trauma. I'm a pact-oriented couple therapist. I reside on unceded Tiwa land outside of Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I do telehealth, so reach out if you'd like to work with me individually or as a couple. Today, I want to talk about jealousy, not to be confused with envy. Um, I guess maybe you could call it a pet peeve, but I think it's really a disservice to the field of mental emotional health to confuse these terms. They're really notably different. Envy is coveting or wanting something that somebody else has. That could be a quality, a privilege, an item, or even a relationship that you don't have. Jealousy, though, is a painful and visceral fear, sometimes in combination with anger and or sadness, that an important relationship, usually romantic, will be taken away or ruined by a third party or intruder, another human being who you perceive to be, a competitive threat to you or to your role in the primary relationship. I'll get off my soapbox in a second, but do us all a favor and learn the difference between these two terms. The confusion really adds to the shame surrounding experiences of jealousy, which is really quite a taboo topic in society. Jealousy is really up there with being a sexual perpetrator in terms of the shame surrounding it and how hard it is to talk about or get help for. The literature on the subject and the professional training or lack thereof is really lacking in how to work with the topic of jealousy. And societal norms of denying and condemning jealousy are really rampant. Partners of chronically jealous people often don't know how to deal with their mate's jealousy in a helpful or productive manner as kind of part of this mix. So, um, you know, partners are clearly injured by their partner's suspiciousness. And I'll talk more about partner needs and suggestions toward the end of this episode. But first, I want to present my own theory that jealousy is a subtype of post-traumatic stress disorder. The DSM, which is the diagnostic manual that mental health professionals use in the United States, it's a 1,000-page document, 900 and something in the toward the later numbers in the 900s, almost 1,000 pages, tiny, tiny print, and it only uses the word jealousy once. And actually, it's listed as a type of delusional disorder. By this reasoning, every post-traumatic stress trigger or paranoid fixation should be identified as a delusion. Just because it's not based in reality doesn't make it fully delusional, because it is based on lived experience. It's just really not a delusion, as jealousy comes from people's experiences. And those experiences often result from childhood abandonment wounds, which can take on a lot of different forms. And it doesn't just mean a parent left. So if you struggle with jealousy, maybe consider, what are some of the themes in my life that could have led to me being prone to or predisposed to being chronically jealous. So, I guess a good example might be, I have a client who struggles with jealousy. And this was likely initiated in childhood. We kind of came upon this story one day, and it really, a lot of clicking and concretizing happened in revisiting this story. But when he was a child, his father's best friend was a woman to whom my client became very attached. And for years, she fulfilled a maternal role for him. She was essentially booted from his life because she expressed interest in being in a romantic relationship with his father. The father told him that, using like pretty derogatory terms, that she just wasn't attractive enough for him, when he told the story later and really got the full picture. But all he knew is that she suddenly disappeared from his life. So he developed a core belief that more powerful men can take away his beloved woman or female partner. He's engaged now, so he's got a fiance, and he still struggles with this belief that more powerful men will come in and take her away. He's really suffered for the majority of his adult life in relationships around this fear. And it's just been really painful for him. Sometimes jealousy results also from previous experiences of being betrayed by one or multiple partners. And we could break that down, what's cheating, what's not. But if there is an expectation of monogamy and that is ruptured or betrayed, oftentimes that can lead people to trauma. So really a more acute trauma versus a complex trauma of childhood relational stuff. But oftentimes, and by no coincidence, it's a combination of both. It's childhood and, I guess, childhood reverberations and adult and recurrent adult experiences in relationships that energize jealousy. And I literally mean energize. There are neural pathways in the limbic system that receive strong currents of electromagnetic energy through decades of neurological reinforcement. So this fear, perception, rejection loop gets continually reinforced with all experiences of jealousy that aren't reparative. So a reparative experience would break the loop and often happens. So when there is recurrent jealousy coming up as a problem in a relationship, this is sort of my emphasis with clients, like how to shift that loop into something that is actually healing the brain and healing the person's trauma. So in a reparative experience, you would get the fear and perception reactions, but not the expected rejection that further leads to successive and ongoing fear. Occurrences that involve evoking fear, for example, seeing an attractive person that fits your interpretation of your partner's type, typing quotes, leads to an involuntary limbic hyperarousal that shifts perception to skew toward paranoia in people who do experience recurrent or chronic jealousy. So that might be the paranoia, or the shift in perception might be convincing yourself that your partner is checking out this attractive person. But instead of shutting your partner out and being passive aggressive or accusing your partner of checking them out, both which would inevitably lead to the experience of rejection, you instead use skillful communication to inform your partner that you're feeling threatened. You might say, that person is so good looking, I'm feeling a bit insecure about myself. And then a helpful response, that wouldn't be reinforcing the jealousy trauma might be something like, oh, I think their outfit's kind of goofy, and no matter what they were wearing, they wouldn't hold a candle to you, babe. Like that would be reparative. So repair occurs on the part of both partners. But that's really the only way to get out of chronic jealousy is by being in a relationship where both you and your partner can learn to communicate in reparative and healthy ways. Otherwise, you're just reinforcing that same trauma over and over and over. Every time the fear comes up, shifts your perception, and then you experience rejection. You both lead to experiences of rejection. So another way to put that is that having lived through abandonment and betrayal, they remember it. Their brains become hypervigilant because they remember it. They see the threat cues. They feel similar to those that they've experienced before. So any memory that really resonates with an experience of abandonment, they're going to feel similar as they did the first time around. And just like with PTSD, a predisposition or a unique sensitivity to internalizing trauma underlies those who become chronically affected by jealous preoccupation. So what I'm saying is folks who experience a lot of jealousy likely have a core of low self-worth, which is an overarching result of childhood relational trauma. On some level, they believe it's likely that they'll be betrayed, as there are people out there who are more beautiful or interesting or whatever than them. So a minor portion of the population does feel entitled to jealous control. These people are narcissistic and abusive, and they are rare. The majority of people who experience frequent and painful jealousy don't want to experience it. They're not proud of it. They're not using it as a tool. Really, they kind of hate themselves, I guess you could say. Like they really reject the parts of them that feel jealous. They want to be cool. They want to be chill. They want to be open. They are, ashamed of feeling jealous, and the shame, whether internal or coming from an external source, aren't helpful. In fact, the shame only reinforces the core belief that they're broken, flawed, messed up, that sort of thing. It feeds underlying fear that somebody better will come along and take away their primary attachment figure. So, the first thing I want to recommend to those people is to drop the shame, to do some work on reducing your shame. Try to embrace that you have some fear-based reactivity to something that scares you, something that has hurt you before, and that makes you a normal human primate. Other people suffer with post-traumatic avoidance, reliving, and reactivity in other areas. This might just be your area or one of your areas. And we just don't have to carry all the shame for that. The next step is to start communicating from this place. So doing the passive aggressive thing, making accusations, they're not going to work well for you. They're only going to lead to recurrence of that loop, that fear, perception, rejection loop. So tell your partner, your bestie, your therapist, whomever, that you struggle with insecurity and fear sometimes because whatever, XYZ happened to you. It happened to you in the past, and you're afraid that it'll happen again. Let people know how they can support you. So you can request empathy, but don't let them fuel your paranoia. Tell them you need their honest assessment, the facts, and reminders that you're loved and safe now. So choose partners who are supportive and emotionally available too. That's like so important. You can get into a relationship that's going to make things worse for you, and you can get into a relationship that can make things a lot better. So if you've had betrayal in previous relationships or the relationship that you're in right now, you're experiencing kind of recurrent triggers. You don't want to be in a relationship where you've been betrayed before. Sometimes in long-term committed partnerships or marriages, you can work through betrayal and the ensuing jealousy. But if you are in a relationship where you've been betrayed and you're really affected by jealousy, I'd recommend getting some professional help with learning how to manage the feelings that are coming up for you. Probably couples therapy, but definitely individual therapy. Staying in a situation that's constantly triggering your jealousy is only going to reinforce your trauma. So, you might not want to date the most attention-seeking, magnanimous type of person who needs a lot of female attention if you're female, or male attention if you're male, or non-binary attention if you're non-binary, or whatever it is that that feels threatening to you. If your partner needs a lot of reinforcement from people with that identity, it might be a relationship that's too challenging. Or you just have to be able to talk about it with your partner. So you can't talk about it with them. That's how the trauma is going to recur. As long as you can have mature communication that's really reparative, that's going to make all the difference in the world. But staying in a situation that's constantly triggering your jealousy is only going to reinforce your trauma, and you deserve healing. You may have to help your partner learn how to communicate with you in a way that's helpful, though. It's not really second nature because, like I said, like jealousy is really taboo in our society. There's a lot of people who deny having jealousy, who don't even use that word. And there's a lot of condemnation for jealousy. So you need to be with somebody who can talk about it, but you might have to help them learn to talk about it. And you may have needs around transparency that need to be communicated too. What you see as sneaky and suspicious behavior may just be their way of protecting their sense of autonomy and privacy. And that probably goes back to their childhood with maybe an intrusive parent. So negotiate with them based on your needs. It's not abnormal or unreasonable to request that, we don't leave the room to take phone calls, or we share who we're texting with. All these agreements do need to go both ways, though. And lastly, do your healing work. If you experience excruciating jealousy, you have trauma that needs to be healed. You're suffering because of your trauma. Inner child or parts work can be really helpful. So see a therapist or a coach, go to meetings, read the books, listen to the podcasts. There are some good podcasts on jealousy out there, and email me if you want more suggestions. I'll have my email in the show notes. You can also affirm yourself to counteract the core feelings of worthlessness. Remind yourself that you can trust those who are trustworthy, that you're no longer a helpless child, but a strong and capable adult. That even if the worst case scenario happened, you would be okay, that you can trust yourself to take care of yourself, that you're as much of an amazing, beautiful person as anybody else, and that you deserve support and love when you experience jealousy. You're in pain, and you deserve support and love when you're in pain, that you're safe in this life, that you're safe in this world. So these are new beliefs that you might have to take on to counteract some of those trauma-induced negative core beliefs. And the truth is that nobody has the power to affect your relationship besides you and your partner. You choose because you chose them really because you thought they were a person of integrity. And if they're not proving themselves to be a person of integrity, you might not be in the right relationship. But they might be a person of integrity, and you just feel triggered by things that come up in life. Now, for partners of chronically jealous people, I want to validate your frustration, resentment, and exhaustion. It's real, and being on the receiving end of paranoid jealousy can feel really confining. It can feel infuriating, intrusive. And I want to encourage you to have boundaries and clear communication about your own experience with a few caveats. First of all, I want to strongly delineate between abuse and jealousy. If you're being physically, verbally, emotionally abused by a partner who is citing jealous concerns for their accusations or meltdowns or privacy violations, punishing behavior, that's never okay. So don't let jealousy be an excuse for abuse. Even if your partner is extremely disturbed by their jealous preoccupation, that doesn't give them the right to treat you badly. I encourage you to insist that they communicate with you in an honest manner about their fears, the stories that they're making up in their head, and their need for information and transparency, and the efforts that they're making to improve the relationship despite their jealousy. Don't accept or excuse your partner if they're accusing you of things you never did, snooping through your private property or information, or worse. However, I will suggest that you lean into full transparency and answer their questions as long as they're not accusatory. They should sound more like, knowing you had to carpool to that meeting with Harper got me really spinning today. I know they get flirty with you sometimes, and I just can't stop thinking about it. Versus something like, so you and Harper had fun spending the day together, I bet. The second is a lot harder to respond to without defensiveness, which makes matters worse. In the first example, they express themselves as having a me problem, not a you problem. We're a lot more likely to want to help people with a problem when they're owning it, and not so much when there's emotionally immature attempts to receive care through jabs and manipulation. You might have to help them learn to do this through sharing how they're affecting you with their communication and asking them to share their feelings with you so that you can help. If your partner said, knowing you had to carpool to that meeting with Harper really got me spinning today. I know they get flirty with you sometimes, and I just can't stop thinking about it. You can reassure them by saying something like, Yeah, I hate that carpool rule. Harper can be annoying, but they couldn't tempt me if they tried to say or do anything that would threaten what I have with you. I'm so sorry you experienced so much anxiety about this today. Be generous with them, let them in, reassure them. You might feel like their need for reassurance is a bottomless pit, but it likely isn't. And you can always lovingly encourage your partner to get outside help, not in exclusion to your care, but as a fortification of their recovery efforts. And if you don't know, ask them what they need to feel safe, knowing that providing them with emotional safety will help them heal. And the more you can help them heal, I guess the more you can help them feel safe, the sooner their symptoms will begin to dissipate, likely at least. A lot of people who experience excessive jealousy have been betrayed, and even gaslit about it, and have been extremely shamed by previous partners. So don't be among the others who have only reinforced their trauma. There are a lot of ways you can actually help them recover. I recommend having a full transparency agreement with each other. They're going to be less likely to resort to sneaky behavior if you're the first to tell them things. Don't let them find out that you spent the day in the car with Harper at the busy or at the let's say at like the company picnic, 2 months down the road because you have kind of a gossipy coworker or something who spilled the beans. You go home from the company picnic and it's just pure hell, right? Like you don't need to set yourself up or your partner up for that. So other things about full transparency might include sharing your phone password, just being like cool about your phone. Ask them to grab your phone, to take a pic, to pull up the GPS, to change the song. If you act precious and shady with your belongings, you're inevitably going to trigger their suspicion. And a lot of people do feel really protective about their privacy, but if this is a person you might want to spend the rest of your life with, you have nothing to lose by being fully transparent with each other. So don't shame them, but do expect mature, responsible communication and non-abusive dialogue. If your partner were triggered by loud noises or driving fast or large dogs, medical procedures, or other trauma-induced fears, you wouldn't force them into situations that feel threatening or make fun of them or make them feel like shit for having a stress response. In much the same way, handle your partner with care and encourage their recovery really in a non-aversive manner. So we're not using threat and insult and defensiveness to manage the issue. And if you're feeling challenged by a jealous partner, or if you're the one suffering with painful recurrent jealousy, or if jealousy is a difficult topic in your relationship, feel free to reach out to me for help. Ways to reach me are listed in the show notes. And if you're struggling for any reason, please get help locally or online. I'm a therapist, but I'm probably not your therapist. Please don't rely on any podcast or webcast as your primary mental health support. Take care of yourself, take care of your partner, and thank you for watching or listening. Till next time.